The third Suikoden Live broadcast was held today, and oh boy, this broadcast was the equivalent of this meeting could have been an email. How they handled it was a mess, but before I get into it, I apologise if I sound off or tired or my voice sounds phlegmy. I'm still recovering from a very bad case of COVID and I'm not 100%. I spent the better half of the last month bedridden with breathing troubles, so that's why I've been absent for the last month. So, the broadcast. What on earth were you doing, Konami? There were two different versions of the broadcast. Well, technically three. There was one broadcast for Japan which was an hour and a half long, and that covered Starleap, the anime, the stage play, a museum exhibition for the series' 30th anniversary, and the lore portion covering the True Runes. This broadcast had full English subtitles despite not being advertised as having them, and nobody knew. Then an hour and a half after that broadcast aired, they released the international version of the broadcast, which was highly edited and cut down into 20 minutes, which only covered Starleap and the anime. This broadcast had no English subtitles and only had auto-generated Japanese subtitles, so nobody could actually watch it. And why was this 20 minutes when the Japanese broadcast spent 40 minutes discussing those two same topics? So many people were left confused and didn't have a clue what was happening. And then an hour after that ended, they released an extended version which was a fully translated version of the Japanese hour and a half broadcast. Why didn't you just release the full broadcast in the first place side by side with the Japanese broadcast? Why did I have to watch three separate broadcasts airing at three different times, totaling nearly 3.5 hours in length, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything? And then after watching those three broadcasts, I still had to check 6 different X accounts. The English account, the Japanese account, the Starleap account, the anime account, the stage play account, and the museum account for additional information because the broadcast kept directing us there. Then I had to check 2 different websites regarding information on the museum exhibition. Then I had to check the official Starleap website because that always gets updated when the broadcast airs. Then I had to check Dengeki and Famitsu in case they had any additional information because Konami loved to hold unannounced interviews with them after events where they reveal extra information. And spoiler alert, they did hold interviews with them. They held 2 separate interviews with Famitsu, one with the stage play cast and one with the producer and director of the anime. Then Dengeki had an interview with the Starleap producer and director. This is insane. There's absolutely no reason why all of this information couldn't have been presented in a single broadcast. Maybe I'm just tired and grumpy because I'm still recovering from COVID, but this broadcast felt so poorly planned, I swear it could have been an email or a couple of tweets. Okay, that's the rant over, now it's time for the news. I'm going to get the smaller things out of the way first. First up is something that I think is really cool. They announced a Suikoden themed museum exhibition. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of the series, they'll be holding a Suikoden 1 and 2 themed exhibition at Gallery Amo in Tokyo, which they're calling Suikoden 1 and 2 Museum of Fantasy. It's going to be a month-long exhibition held between December 6th to January 12th. There'll be original artwork and story materials on display, basically things they've shown at previous events like sketches and story notes and such. They revealed that they've created statues of characters as well as photo spots of prominent in-game locations, as well as having created many character costume pieces, weapons and accessories to show off. It'll be like walking into a real-life Suikoden themed museum. Tickets are open for sale to international fans and they're available for purchase through E+ tickets. Attendees will receive one of 10 medal-style stickers being handed out at random. You'll receive one of Tyr, Gremio, Ted, Victor, Flick, Ryu, Nanami, Joey, Luke, or Luca. They'll also be handing out Suikoden 1 and 2 themed postcards, but whether you get something from Suikoden 1 or 2 depends on what day you attend. So it seems like this is to encourage repeat visits. Regular admission tickets will cost 2,500 yen, which based on current currency conversion rates is roughly €15 or $17. New merchandise will also be available at the event, however they won't be for sale directly, you'll have to purchase a special more expensive ticket to get them. A set of 3 rubber straps featuring Tyr, Ryu and Luke will be given to those who purchase the 5,000 yen ticket, which is roughly €30 or $34. and a special Luca Blight Die You Pig t-shirt made by Hardcore Chocolate, which sounds like a sister company to Blacked than it does a clothing brand, will be given out to those who purchase the most expensive ticket, which costs 7,500 yen, which is roughly €45 or $51. You can expect this merch to be put on auction sites by resellers for ridiculous prices once the exhibition is over. They've also opened up a Genzo Museum X account for all information related to the exhibition, so go give that a follow. Next up is the stage play. They held a pretty long interview with some of the cast, and then Famitsu released another interview with the cast after the broadcast ended. Does anybody actually care about this stage play? Because I sure don't, and after seeing the interview with the cast, I care even less. The stage play is irrelevant to everyone outside of Japan. Unless Konami plan on recording it and releasing it on Blu-ray with subtitles, which I just don't see happening, there isn't any real reason to discuss this. Now let's get into the news and information you're really here for, Starleap and the Suikoden 2 anime. There wasn't a whole lot of information released about the anime, but what little they did share should excite many of you. We got a partial release date. The Suikoden 2 anime is confirmed to release next year in 2026. Unfortunately, they didn't give us an exact release date, so we don't know what month it will release in, but at least knowing the year should set some people at ease, although it's still going to be a frustratingly long wait. They showed off a few seconds of test footage, and by that I mean some very early CG work of a camera flying over a forest and what feels like someone running through a forest. I'm sure some people will speculate as to what those scenes might be hinting towards, but I don't think it's that deep. It really feels like nothing more than very early test footage. They also showed off a short clip of some motion capturing, and we also got a few second look at Ryu and Joey sitting by a campfire in the Highland camp looking up at the stars. They revealed that this scene is from the night before the beginning of Suikoden 2, the calm before the storm. And there are exactly 108 stars in the night sky. I counted them myself to double check after they mentioned it during the broadcast. They also announced the opening of the Suikoden Anime X account, so hooray, another account to follow. I actually revealed that account a few days before the broadcast happened, so go give that account a follow to keep up to date on all things anime related. That pretty much sums up the news about the anime. Honestly, this could have been a tweet. And finally, Starleap. We've got a decent chunk of information to cover here, but very little of it is actually going to be new. Most of it is either going to be covering things people either already knew or correctly assumed to be the case. Firstly, they gave a quick little recap of information we already knew. They mentioned that the 108 Stars of Destiny will be free and recruited as normal throughout the story, just as they were in previous games. I think the reason they mention this again is because there's still a lot of misinformation spreading around by the very vocal anti-gacha crowd, so they just want everyone to be aware once again that the gacha won't in any way affect the main game. They also mention that Starleap is intended to reveal parts of stories that weren't depicted in the previous games, that it has the possibility to tell sub-stories and fill in the blanks that the mainline games didn't cover. As we all know by now, Chapter 1 will be covering Odessa and Achilles' backstory and the foundation of the Liberation Army, so I do wonder if perhaps we'll see some other short stories from the novels covered in future chapters, or if they'll tell completely original stories that were left unanswered, like Norma and Ernst enlisting Levi's help to break the Beast Rune curse on Ernst. They also mentioned that they're looking into ways to account link and carry progress over between mobile and PC, which is something that I'm sure many people would be very happy with. And they mentioned that currently the only supported languages are Japanese, English, German, French, Korean and Chinese. Sorry to all the Spanish, Italian and Portuguese speaking fans out there, but you're going to have to continue asking them to add support for your languages. That covers the recap, so now it's time for the newish information. They showed off a battle trailer, which they actually messed up and mistakenly uploaded several hours before the broadcast aired. It was public for about a half hour before they realised their mistake and made it private, but by then the majority of the information was already floating around X and Reddit. The trailer dives quite a bit into the battle system. Starleap will feature timeline turn-based battles, so kind of like the Trail series or pretty much every other timeline turn-based RPG out there. You can see each character's turn order on the timeline. The more agile a character is, the sooner they'll be able to act, and they'll cycle through the timeline faster to be able to attack again sooner than others. You've got 3 forms of attack. Each of these attacks will have different cool-off times that determine how soon that character can act again. You've got your basic normal attack, which is low powered, but your character will be able to act again sooner. You've got your runes, which depending on the character might be magical spells or simply attack techniques. During the lore portion at the end of the video where Sakiyama was discussing the true runes, he revealed that Starleap will introduce many new regular runes that haven't been seen in the series before, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new runes they've come up with. Then you have secret techniques or special techniques. These are very powerful attacks that can only be used once you fill up the attack gauge, which is filled by doing basic attacks and using your rune. Each character will have their own unique special technique. They also revealed that enemies will have weaknesses to certain attacks and elements. They might be weak to slashing damage or wind damage, and by targeting enemies with the attack types they're weak to, you can unbalance them, which prevents them from attacking and causes them to take additional damage while unbalanced. The battles also include a chain system. When 4 or more party members line up on the turn order timeline, you can perform a chain attack. All of those party members will act at the same time and deal increased damage. The more characters that participate in the chain attacks, the greater the damage you'll deal. This will definitely add some strategy to the battles. As I mentioned earlier, doing basic attacks are weak, but they will allow you to attack again sooner. You can combine that with speed ups and enemy slowdowns to line up your characters on the timeline, or you can do it by unbalancing enemies. And you can try to line up all 6 of your party members and then perform a chain attack on an unbalanced enemy to deal massive damage. But the strategy with the battles doesn't end there. They very quickly showed off party compositions, and there's some interesting information here, though not all of it is explained, so we're going to have to try and break it down ourselves. This part is going to spoil a bunch of characters. Yes, that's Kika, Vincent, Melody, Stallion, and Sergeant Joe as a duckling. Pretend you didn't see them because I want to talk about them in a minute. You'll notice a bunch of information around each character. There's a sword icon with a number on each character. I'm not entirely sure what that number means, but it could be each character's power level. There are also 2 icons to the right of each character which look to be an element and an attack type. The hero's icons are wind and a fist. I'm assuming the fist means blunt damage. Kika's icons look to be lightning and swords, indicating she'll have a lightning rune and deal slashing damage, which we know from Suikoden 4 she uses swords. Vincent has wind and slashing. Melody has wind and a grimoire, indicating that her basic attacks could be magical damage. Stallion has wind and blunt damage, which I'm confused by as he wields a bow, so surely he should have piercing damage. And Sergeant Joe has water and blunt damage. Then to the top right of the screen we have party equipment with 12 empty slots. I'm not sure exactly what this is for as it wasn't explained in the video. Could it be for your inventory for healing supplies, antidotes and the like, or could it be for combat boosting items? And then below that you have your support characters. You can see Tuta there, who will heal you for 100 HP when you drop below 50% health, so he essentially functions like a medicine rune. He can do this 3 times per battle. And there are 2 empty support slots beside him, so you can have up to 6 party members and 3 support characters at a time. This will definitely make for some interesting party compositions, and depending on what kind of support characters we get and whether or not their combat abilities can stack, I can see some broken and overpowered combos happening. And since you've seen the characters, let's talk about the gacha characters that were revealed. Duckling Sergeant Joe, or Geordie as he's probably called here, looks absolutely adorable. So this isn't the Sergeant Joe that we know from Suikoden 3, this is a much younger Joe. This fits with information provided by the developers to Dengeki Online, where they stated that they'd like to include younger and older versions of characters from the mainline games, so we can probably expect more younger variations of characters from games like Suikoden 2 and 3. We also got a glimpse of Vincent, Melody, Stallion, Kika, Tuta and George Prime. I know there's going to be a lot of excitement surrounding Kika. You might notice the R, SR and SSR above the characters' heads. I'm assuming those mean rare, super rare, and super rare or something along those lines to indicate their rarity for the gacha pulls. Admittedly, I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to gacha games as they're not something I play, so I can't say for certain what the pull rates will be, but a quick Google search shows that SSR characters generally have pull rates from anywhere as low as 0.5% all the way up to a more generous 10% depending on the game. Though many games seem to offer some sort of pity system where you get a guaranteed SSR after a certain number of pulls without getting one. We don't know what Starleap's pull rates will be just yet, as Konami haven't revealed that information, so let's not get too negative just yet. You can see that Stallion, Kika and George are SSR, indicating that they'll be very rare with low pull rates. Sergeant Joe is SR, making him hard to pull, while Melody, Vincent and Tuta are all rare, so they'll likely be somewhat common pulls. I do think Stallion being a super rare is a strange choice. I don't think any of us would put him on the level of George or Kika, so that one is a bit strange. From what I can find on Google, some gacha games tend to give players a guaranteed high tier pull, usually in the launch window when they have some kind of beginner introductory type banner. Here's your token high tiered character sort of thing. I'm almost positive that George Prime will be that character here. You may also notice a new character on the list that hasn't been revealed yet. Right below Kika we have a young elven girl. Her name appears to be Sophia. This image is her only appearance throughout the entire broadcast and there's no mention of her on the Starleap website, so we know nothing else about her. We also got a little bit of additional information about the characters and the gacha system from the Dengeki Online interview. They stated that we want to separate events in gacha from the main story and release a variety of characters. By doing so, we hope to be able to release characters in seasonal costumes, as well as grown-up and younger versions of characters from previous games. You know exactly what that means. I hope you're all prepared for those summer swimsuit themed gacha pulls. I want you all to visualize Kryn and Solemn Barrows and Speedos rubbing suntan lotion all over each other. And we can also likely expect multiple versions of characters, younger, older, and as we knew them from the games we've played, which we've seen from young Sergeant Joe, and we'll probably get the Sergeant Joe we remember from Suikoden 3 as well at some point. And back to the broadcast, they mentioned that you can tweet your character requests and feedback with the tag SuikodenSP and they'll see it. Although there's no guarantee that what characters you want will be added or your feedback taken, but at least you'll know they'll be listening. Then they gave us a little overview and some bios of some of the antagonists and recurring characters. Ragnar, who we've already seen in previous footage, now has a profile on the official website and it appears to be AI translated. What a shocker. It states he has a wide range of emotions. What they actually mean is he's emotionally volatile, as we've seen him be quick to anger in previous footage. And then we have Agar. He's another of the antagonists. Unlike Ragnar, Agar is the more calm and collected of the two, so think Kulgan and Seed, Zahak and Elenia. And then we have the leader who gives them their orders. They haven't revealed her name, age or motives yet, except that she's much older than she looks. They were very hush-hush about her, and it seems like everything about her will be revealed in the game. They also added some small bios for Ranran, Rinrin and Tenten, as well as Varkas and Sidonia, who are now confirmed to make an appearance in the game. The ending of the trailer also confirms that the pirates Angie, Kanak and Leonardo will be making an appearance. Next up, they gave us a new look at the war system. Starleap's war system is real-time strategy where you create units with up to 6 characters. It appears to be a blend of Suikoden 5 and Suikoden 3's war systems. If real-time is too fast-paced and chaotic for your liking, don't worry, you can pause the war battles while selecting commands, so it does give you some time to slow things down and strategize. It also seems like many characters will have techniques that they can use on the war map outside of the battles themselves. You can see Shapur using a charge ability to dash through the Scarlet Moon troops and dealing a chunk of damage, which then leads to the Scarlet Moon soldiers being pincered between Shapur and the hero. During the interview with Dengeki Online, they revealed that they'd like to have all 108 characters on screen and hope to in the future, but because of mobile limitations, they only have 30 or so characters. Basically, what that means is that your army will consist of 5 teams of 6 characters during the war battles, which does make the war battles feel very small scale. Things like this are always a worry with mobile games. Even when they get ported to PC and consoles, the console and PC versions of the game will always be held back due to the restrictions and limitations of mobile devices. We also got a tiny bit more information from Dengeki where the developers revealed that the main story is set up so that it can depict various eras. In that sense, it's not necessarily limited to the timeline of around 453, so they think it will be possible to delve deeper into the stories and characters of the series in various ways in the main story. which is something most of us kind of already suspected with the Rune of Change. And they also mentioned that in addition to the main story, there will also be events. In the event scenarios, characters from previous games or parent generation may interact with the protagonist. So these will be additional scenarios separate from the main story, which is more or less them reconfirming things we already knew. And finally, to wrap things up, Sakiyama then held the My First Time in Suikoden section where he very briefly touched on the True Runes, but he didn't really talk about anything or give any real information. Just go watch my in-depth lore video on the True Runes instead. And if you're wondering when the next Suikoden Live broadcast will be, Rui Naito kind of half-jokingly said that there'll be more information released in September, though a warning appeared on screen that streams are subject to change without notice. So while he may hope to have another broadcast soon in September, there may not be one in September, so maybe don't get too excited just yet. Not the most exciting of broadcasts and not a great deal of actual news came out of it, but that pretty much sums up everything that happened. I will say that what they did show about Starleap has me even more excited for the game, and I think it looks incredible. I can't wait to get my hands on it and start playing it. But for now, I'm tired, I'm ready to collapse, and I'm going to go to bed to continue my recovery. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you all later.